Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Bayishim, Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bayishim, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on RT.com titled, Russia and U.S. are rushing into new arms race as they run out of time for realistic arms control deal. The New START treaty is set to expire in February of 2021. The U.S. insists that China be brought into any new agreement. Russia insists that any new talks include NATO nukes. The likely result is no deal and a dangerous new arms race. And there will be a nuclear conflict between the U.S. and Russia. It's all a part of biblical prophecy. During this upcoming nuclear-armed World War III, nuclear missiles will be shot to the ends of the earth, and the main place that's going to feel that work is the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt. It's going to get hit with 200 million nuclear missiles and be turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. And there's nothing anybody can do to avert that prophecy from coming to its fulfillment. As it says in Isaiah 55 verse 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. Nuclear holocaust, World War III. This is Revelation chapter 9 verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, speaking of World War I, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter, World War II and World War III. The last remaining vestige of Cold War-era arms control agreement between the U.S. and Russia, the New START treaty, will expire in February of 2021. For its part, Russia has been seeking U.S. concurrence in invoking a provision of the treaty which allows for an automatic 5-year extension of the agreement without the need to seek any further legislative ratification. The U.S. has balked, indicating that the Obama-era treaty dating back to 2010 does not include China, and as such places the U.S. at a strategic disadvantage. The U.S. used similar logic to justify its withdrawal from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces, or INF treaty. All these treaties and peace talks are all for naught because, again, this prophecy will come to its fulfillment. New arms, new race. Both the U.S. and Russia are engaged in the early stages of developing new strategic nuclear weapons to replace older systems. These weapons, which will cost trillions of dollars to develop and deploy, are with few exceptions still many years away from entering into service. And some new nuclear weapons have already been developed and deployed by the U.S. and Russia. On the Russian side, you have the nuclear-capable Avant-Garde hypersonic glider, and with the U.S., they've developed low-yield tactical nuclear warheads for their submarine forces. A 5-year extension of New START would provide both nations time to reach an agreement which responsibly addresses the need for strategic nuclear force modernization while continuing the past practice of seeking additional cuts in their respective nuclear arsenals. Void of an extension of New START, both Russia and the U.S. will enter a dangerous period where recrimination and mistrust, rather than verification-based trust and a spirit of mutually beneficial disarmament, govern relations. Lacking the insights into one another's nuclear forces enabled by treaty compliance verification mechanisms, both Russia and the U.S. will believe the worst of the other and field new weapons designed to counter a worst-case scenario. This will lead to an expansion of strategic nuclear weapons at a cost neither side can afford in this day and age of post-coronavirus economic difficulty. Not the man for the job. Complicating matters further, President Trump has appointed Marshall Billingslea as his new special envoy for arms control. Previous negotiations with the Russians regarding New START were conducted by Andrea Thompson, who served as the Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security until her departure in October of 2019, and Yelena Poblit, who served as the Assistant Secretary for Arms Control, Verification, and Compliance until her resignation in June of 2019. Trump's decision to appoint Billingsley to the newly created position of Special Presidential Envoy for Arms Control sidesteps the need to fill the two Senate-confirmed positions previously held by Thompson and Poblit, which have been unfilled for 6 and 11 months respectively, with President Trump failing to nominate anyone to fill them. Billingsley's previous government experience includes working in the Pentagon under George W. Bush, where he was involved in the implementation of so-called enhanced interrogation techniques, torture by any other name. So another war hawk, the Most High's positioning all these bloodthirsty Edomites in positions to get things done. After a stint in the private sector during the Obama presidency, Billingsley joined the Trump administration in April 2017 as a senior Department of Treasury official responsible for tracking down terrorist-affiliated finances. India and Pakistan officially becoming nuclear powers would spell disaster for non-proliferation treaty. And best believe India and Pakistan are going to shoot off their nukes once this Third World War comes to pass. Despite his lack of any arms control experience, President Trump made Billingsley responsible for, among other things, heading up arms control negotiations with both Russia and China, where he will be charged with seeking a new era of arms control that moves beyond the bilateral treaties of the past. In short, Billingsley is not tasked with seeking an extension of the New START treaty, but rather negotiating an altogether new treaty vehicle inclusive of both Russian and Chinese strategic nuclear weapons. This is nothing less than a mission impossible, given that the Chinese have publicly stated that they have no interest in entering into any such discussions. It is well known that China follows a defense policy that is defensive in nature, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said. Our nuclear force is always kept at the minimum level required by national security, with an order of magnitude difference from that of the U.S. and Russia. China's intransigence runs counter to the official U.S. position, most recently articulated in a State Department report sent to Congress regarding Russian compliance with the New START treaty. While the report finds that Russia is complying with its treaty obligations, the treaty does not cover enough Russian strategic systems, including several that have been previously announced by President Putin, and leaves China to operate with no restrictions in terms of the size and scope of its strategic nuclear arsenal. The administration is seeking arms control that can deliver real security to the United States and its allies and partners, and has not yet made a decision on whether and how the extension of the New START treaty will be an element of that effort, the report said. For its part, Russia has some conditions of its own when it comes time to meet with Marshal Billingsley. While the Russians have indicated that they are open to including at least 2 of the newer strategic nuclear weapons into the framework of the New START treaty, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has indicated that the withdrawal of U.S. nuclear weapons from Europe will most likely be a topic of discussion in the next round of arms control talks with the U.S., which isn't going to happen. Those nukes in Europe are going to stay exactly where they are. A diplomatic game of chicken. Like the U.S.'s insistence on Chinese involvement in New START, the Russian desire to include U.S. nuclear weapons stored in Europe is unrealistic in the short term, if for no other reason than these weapons are considered to be part and parcel of the NATO nuclear umbrella and are going to be pivotal during this upcoming third woe, and any decision as to their final disposition would have to involve NATO approval beforehand. Lavrov's purpose in bringing this particular issue up at this stage may be to place an equally unrealistic negotiation position on the table in hopes that the U.S. will agree to table it, and the issue of Chinese involvement in New START until after the treaty has been extended. While the tabling of proposals and counterproposals are age-old diplomatic negotiating tactics, the fact remains that both Russia and the U.S. are fast running out of time to extend the New START treaty. What is certain is that even if Russia, the U.S., and China were in agreement to negotiate a new trilateral version of New START, it couldn't be prior to the expiration of that treaty. The same holds true for any NATO discussions about the U.S. removing its nuclear weapons from Europe. There simply is no time. Both Russia and the U.S. will be wrestling with the economic consequences of their respective responses to the coronavirus pandemic for some time. The last thing they need is to allocate hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars into fielding weapons they neither need nor desire. By extending New START, both sides would buy themselves time to rethink their national security proposals and the role played by nuclear weapons. Such a measured pace is far preferable to the helter-skelter approach to strategic nuclear weapons acquisition that was prevalent during the Cold War. And again, all these treaties and peace talks are futile because in the end, these nuclear weapons will be used as judgment by Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai on you people for your wickedness. Chiefly 2/3 of you Israelites, or so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who refuse to hearken back unto your power, and you Edomites, or so-called white people, for touching the apple of his eye, the Israelites. This is 2 Peter 3 verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And what's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth? Not Nibiru or volcanoes. It's going to be nuclear-tipped ICBMs being shot to the ends of the earth. And nuclear weapons are biblical. This is Joel chapter 2. I'm going to read verse 1 through 8. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, which is what the men of the Lord are doing by going out there on the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this to warn you Israelites of the terrible times to come and what you need to do to have that protective hedge of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai over you to possibly be saved from these coming tribulations. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand, and it will be as a thief in the night. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, speaking about these nuclear missiles, there hath not been ever the like, talking about how they only came about very recently, beginning with those atomic bombs during World War II. Neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Once these nuclear missiles are shot, all of them will be used. And after the dust settles, the Israelites are going to come back into power, and we're not going to let you heathens make these weapons anymore. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them. The area looks normal and pristine. You have cities, parks, peoples, animals, etc., etc. And behind them, a desolate wilderness. After those nuclear missiles detonate, the land is turned into a wasteland, like that movie Mad Max or those video games Fallout. Yeah, and nothing shall escape them. If you're in that vicinity, you better kiss your ass goodbye. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. And the reason the prophet Jeremiah is describing these nuclear weapons as chariots and horsemen And weapons of war is because you have to remember that when he saw these visions thousands of years ago, he didn't know what a modern nuclear-tipped ICBM was, so he described it the best way he could with weapons of war he knew during his times. Before their face, the people shall be much pained. All their faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march, every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. When these missiles are shot, they're going to reach their targets without a hitch, because the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ishim Yahushai is going to be on these missiles, guiding them to go exactly where they need to go. And as I said at the beginning of the video, the main nuclear exchange is going to be between the U.S. and Russia. This is Jeremiah 50, verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, the United States of America, an assembly of great nations from the north country being Russia. Russia is known in the scriptures as Gog and Magog, as well as the spiritual Medes. And that assembly of great nations are not only the allies of Russia, such as China, Iran, and North Korea, but also the allies of the U.S., which are going to turn against her in that day and ally themselves with Russia, like France, Germany, Britain, South Korea, Japan, Saudi Arabia, etc., etc. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. And those arrows are again speaking of those nuclear-tipped ICBMs. Now I'm going to close it out in Isaiah 13, verse 17 through 20. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, Russia, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. These peace treaties and peace talks like New Start are going to mean nothing in that day when the Most High puts the spirit on the Medes and that assembly of great nations to shoot their nuclear missiles onto Babylon. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And what do bows shoot? Arrows. Back in Jeremiah 50, verse 9. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Those bows are the silos that those nuclear-tipped arrows are going to be shot out of. And where it says they shall dash the young men to pieces and shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb, their eyes shall not spare children. Everyone who is not an elect Israelite that gets beamed out of America onto a chariot in that day is going to get burned up in that nuclear fire. And Babylon, the United States of America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And again, besides being known as Babylon the Great, the United States is also known as spiritual Egypt and Sodom in Revelation 11, verse 8. And how did the Most High overthrow ancient Sodom and Gomorrah? With fire and brimstone from the sky. And he's going to overthrow this modern Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone from the sky. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. When those 200 million nuclear missiles hit the United States of America, it's going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then afterwards, that desolate, uninhabitable wasteland that's going to stand as a memorial as to what a wicked kingdom looks like and how not to govern the earth. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly Esau, Edom. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.